The first thing Djamila Rahal ever said to me was a lie. I knew because the tape recorder disagreed with her. She had been sitting beneath a cracked blue window in Dar El Ward, wrapped in a cream shawl despite the August heat, telling me that nobody had entered the sealed eastern wing of the house since the fire 18 years earlier. Then my new German tape recorder, which I had already decided was an expensive machine designed specifically to humiliate me, began playing her voice backward. I slapped it. It squealed. I slapped it again. And from somewhere behind the wall came 3 slow knocks. Djamila looked at the wall, then at me. Then she smiled. "No one," she repeated. That was how I began writing the biography of Algeria's most famous liar. I was 28 years old then, living in Ain Rahal in the summer of 1968, and I repaired books for a living. Not glamorous books. People imagine manuscript restoration means illuminated Qurans, medieval poetry, and forgotten royal correspondence. Mostly I repaired school certificates damaged by damp, marriage registers eaten by silverfish, shop ledgers with tea stains, and family letters someone's grandmother had folded until the paper surrendered. My father, Nadia Benali, owned the shop. I did the delicate work. He negotiated prices. This arrangement existed because my father believed I would charge people 3 dinars for 20 dinars of work if they looked sufficiently sad. He was correct. The unusual part of my profession was something my father did not know. Sometimes, when I restored handwritten names, dates, or signatures, I heard memories. I called them ink echoes. The first had happened when I was 14. I repaired my mother's name on an old recipe she had written before she died. The moment the missing curve of the final letter dried beneath my brush, I heard her laugh. Not in the room. Inside me. 5 seconds. My mother arguing that my father had put too much salt in the soup. Then silence. I dropped the brush. Afterward, I forgot the name of my primary school teacher. That was the price. Every strong echo took something. Usually something small. What I had eaten. Where I had placed a key. A customer's face. So I learned caution. Then Djamila Rahal sent me a letter. Everyone in Algeria knew Djamila. Her novels were translated into French, Spanish, and English. Students wrote essays about her. Journalists chased her for interviews. She rewarded them by telling different stories. Her father had been a merchant. No, a teacher. No, a judge. She had grown up in Iran. Constantine. Tlemcen. Once, apparently, Marseille. A magazine in Paris had printed 3 versions of her childhood, beside one another under the title, The Woman with 4 Pasts. Djamila framed it. Her letter to me contained 12 lines. She was dying. She wanted her biography written. She wanted me. I assumed there had been some mistake until I reached the final sentence. Bring your restoration tools. That was why I was standing inside Dar El Ward 2 weeks later, holding a rebellious tape recorder, while something knocked behind a sealed wall. The mansion sat beyond the western edge of Ain Rahal, where the paved road gave up and olive trees took over. Dar El Ward meant House of Roses. There were almost no roses left. The gardens were brown and tangled. The fountain had cracked clean through its basin. One corner of the roof sagged inward. Yet the house still had dignity. White stone. Green shutters. Blue tiles imported from Tunisia decades before. A courtyard large enough for 50 guests. And silence in places a house should not have been silent. Djamila watched me rewind the tape. You hit machines when they disagree with you. Only foreign machines. Patriotic. I try. She laughed. That laugh bothered me. I had heard it somewhere before. I could not remember where. She leaned forward. You have heard my reputation. Several versions. Good, then you understand the difficulty. You lie. Frequently. And now you want me to believe you. No, I want you to check. That was unexpected. Beside her chair sat a wooden chest. She opened it. Inside were letters, school books, household ledgers, photographs, and several bundles tied with faded ribbon. You may investigate anything I tell you, she said. You may compare documents, speak to whoever still lives, search municipal records, call me a liar to my face if it amuses you. That sounds dangerously enjoyable. One rule. Of course there was one. She removed a folded piece of paper. Someone had scraped away a handwritten line, so aggressively, the fibers were nearly transparent. Never restore a name that has been deliberately erased. I looked at her. You brought a manuscript restorer into a house full of damaged records and told her not to restore something. I am testing your character. You are testing the wrong character. I suspected as much. She placed the paper back inside the chest. Then she began. Her story, she said, did not begin with herself. It began with two girls, Amina Rahal and Salima Rahal, two daughters of Murad Rahal, the wealthiest olive merchant Ain Rahal had ever produced. Amina was bold. Salima was delicate. Amina climbed walls. Salima collected pressed flowers. Amina argued with adults. Salima apologized to furniture after bumping into it. Their mother had died young. Their father raised them inside Dar El Ward with servants, tutors, and rules. Djamila spoke for 2 hours. By sunset, I had 13 pages of notes. I also had one problem. While describing Salima's childhood bedroom, Djamila mentioned blue tiles beside the fireplace. Earlier that afternoon, I had passed the sealed eastern wing. Through a cracked shutter, I had seen blue tiles. Freshly swept. I asked Djamila about them. She said I was mistaken. Then came the backward tape. Then the knocking. When I finally packed my things, Djamila called after me. Nadia. I turned. She held the scraped document. Curiosity is not the same thing as courage. No. It is much less selective. I drove home annoyed because I suspected she had just insulted me accurately. That night, I dreamed of 3 girls running through a corridor. When I woke, I could remember only 2 faces. My father reacted to Djamila Rahal's offer the way sensible fathers react when mysterious famous women invite their daughters into decaying mansions. No. I already accepted. Then I object retrospectively. That sounds ineffective. It is all I have left. We were eating lentil soup behind the shop. My father pointed his spoon at me. That family has buried more arguments than most families have relatives. I'm writing a biography. You repair books. I also read. That does not qualify you to investigate dead rich people. Apparently, Djamila disagrees. Djamila also once told a journalist she learned to read from a blind shepherd. That was a good story. That is not the point. It was, however, why I wanted the job. Not fame. Not money, though Djamila's advance could have replaced our roof before the next winter. I wanted to know why someone who had spent decades refusing truth had suddenly decided to hire a woman whose entire profession involved repairing damaged records. I returned the following morning. This time, I brought my friend Leela Sadi. Leela taught history at the secondary school and had the irritating habit of asking moral questions while I was trying to enjoy practical ones. She was 31, sharp-eyed, patient with children and merciless with adults. She also knew every retired teacher within 20 kilometers. I am not helping you break into anything, she said as we approached Dar El Ward. We haven't even arrived. I know your face. My face is neutral. Your face has already selected a window. Djamila liked her immediately. Leela distrusted Djamila immediately. This ensured they spoke for almost an hour. That was when I first heard about the governess. Her name had been Leela Cherif. No relation, my Leela said. Your parents lacked imagination, Djamila replied. According to Djamila, Murad Rahal hired Cherif in 1939 because the girls were becoming impossible to educate. Amina refused lessons she considered boring. Salima missed lessons because of fevers. Cherif was 26, unmarried and unusually stubborn. Within months, she noticed inconsistencies. Exercises attributed to Salima appeared in different handwriting. Food disappeared from a locked pantry. A third towel sometimes appeared in the washing. She occasionally saw a child crossing the garden when both sisters were supposed to be indoors. The strangest incident happened one rainy afternoon. Cherif left Salima solving arithmetic problems in the schoolroom. She walked downstairs. From the courtyard, she saw Salima standing beneath the covered arcade. Cherif returned upstairs. Salima was still seated at the desk. She thought she had seen a ghost, I asked. No, Djamila said. What did she think? That is where she began becoming troublesome. Djamila gave us access to several schoolbooks. The handwriting difference was obvious once I looked closely. One Salima wrote with hard pressure and narrow loops. The other used softer strokes. 2 people, I said. Or 1 inconsistent child, Djamila replied. You invited me to verify things, and now you're arguing with the verification. I said you may investigate. I did not promise to make it pleasant. Leela took the school books to compare against old educational records. I stayed. That afternoon, Djamila told me about the worsening relationship between Amina and Salima. According to her, Amina became jealous of Salima's constant protection. Salima resented Amina's freedom. Their father encouraged neither reconciliation nor independence. He preferred obedience. Murad Rahal, Djamila said, cared about appearances with almost religious intensity. Family disagreements were private. Debts were private. Illness was private. Servants who talked were dismissed. Visitors saw polished floors, good coffee, and obedient daughters. What happened to the governess? I asked. Eventually she left. Why? People leave. Where? Djamila smiled. You see, curiosity. You still haven't answered. No. That evening, I began cataloging the documents in her chest. The third ledger I opened was from 1941. Household expenses. Oil. Soap. Flour. Lamp fuel. Then clothing. 3 winter coats. I stopped. 3 pairs of school shoes. 3 sets of ribbons. I read the entries twice. Perhaps one belonged to a servant's child. But the sizes were nearly identical. 3 sets of school stockings. 3 notebooks. 3 bottles of children's medicine. I turned the page. A line had been scraped away. Not merely crossed out. Removed. I could still see the lower edges of several letters. My fingers tingled. Ink echoes did that sometimes. The sensation arrived before the memory. I closed the ledger. I had promised nothing. Djamila had issued a rule. Rules and promises are not identical, which is exactly the kind of thinking people use moments before doing something stupid. I opened my restoration box. A little moisture. A tracing lens. Pigment mixed to match the original iron gall ink. I rebuilt the first damaged curve. Nothing. Second. Nothing. The third letter completed a name. Yamina. The room disappeared. For 9 seconds, I heard a child whispering. A woman said, again. The child answered, My name is Salima Rahal. Again. My name is Salima Rahal. A second girl giggled. A third voice hissed, Stop laughing. Then the echo ended. I was back at the desk. My hand shook. 3 girls. Not 2. I stood so quickly my chair fell. Djamila was in the doorway. She looked at the restored name. She did not seem angry. That was worse. You told me not to. Yes. You expected me to. Yes. Why? Because I needed to know whether you would choose an answer over your own safety. My stomach tightened. What safety? She looked at my restoration tools. Then at me. Tell me, Nadia, what did the ink take from you? I stopped breathing. Nobody knew. Not my father. Not Leela. Nobody. Djamila stepped into the room. You thought you were the first woman in Ain Rahal who could hear what writing remembers. For the first time since I entered the house, I forgot to be clever. Djamila refused to explain how she knew. Naturally, this made me unbearable. I followed her from the archive room into the courtyard. You knew about the echoes. Yes. How? Later. No. Then remained dissatisfied. I'm very capable of that. I noticed. I asked what she could hear. She said nothing. I asked whether the ability ran in families. Nothing. I asked whether my mother had known. That stopped her. Only for a second. But I saw it. You knew my mother. I knew many people. That is not an answer. It is technically an answer. You simply dislike it. I nearly walked out. Then she said, the girl whose name you restored was Yamina. I stayed. Of course I stayed. That was my problem. Yamina, according to Djamila, had arrived at Dar El Ward when she was approximately 6. Her mother, Saida, had been a seamstress from outside town. Murad had supported them quietly. After Saida died, he brought Yamina into the household. Officially, she was the orphaned daughter of a servant. Unofficially, she was his daughter. Amina discovered this first. Salima discovered something worse. Yamina resembled her. Same narrow chin. Same dark eyes. Same straight black hair. Not identical. Close enough for visitors who did not know them well. Salima had always been sickly. When she missed a lesson, Murad sent Yamina. When Salima was too weak to attend a family visit, Yamina wore her dress. At first, the substitutions lasted an hour. Then an afternoon. Then days. Why? I asked. Because admitting Yamina existed required admitting her mother existed. He would rather teach a child to impersonate another child. You have met respectable families. That was Djamila at her best. One sentence, and you laughed before realizing nothing was funny. Murad taught Yamina Salima's handwriting. Her habits. Her prayers. The names of relatives. The stories she was supposed to remember. That explained the school books. It explained Cherif seeing Salima in 2 places. It explained the household ledger. It explained almost everything. Almost. Why erase Yamina from the ledger if everyone in the house knew she was there? Servants knew a girl existed, not who she was. And Cherif. She discovered too much. What happened to her? Later. I hated that word by then. Later was where Djamila stored entire cemeteries. Leela returned the next afternoon carrying copies of school records. She had found enrollment forms for Amina and Salima. Nothing for Yamina. But she found something else. Several examination sheets supposedly completed by Salima on dates when local medical records showed Salima had been confined to bed. You realize what this means, Leela said. Yes. Murad didn't merely use Yamina privately. He used her officially. He manufactured records. He manufactured a daughter. That line stayed with me. Over the next 2 weeks, our investigation widened. A retired seamstress remembered 3 girls coming to the fabric shop. A former gardener remembered one daughter who was always being told to go upstairs when visitors arrived. An 80-year-old neighbor remembered hearing 3 girls singing in the courtyard. Nobody remembered the third girl's name. Yamina existed in memories without existing in records. Meanwhile, my relationship with Djamila became stranger. She was teaching me. Not obviously. She would leave damaged documents where I could find them. One contained a weak echo. Another contained none. A third overwhelmed me so badly, I lost 10 minutes. Eventually, I understood. Not all writing held memories equally. Ink laid down during strong emotion retained more. Freshly repaired missing letters acted almost like reopening a sealed bottle. Names held more than ordinary words because people attached identity to them. Dates held more when someone feared or anticipated what the date meant. Signatures were strongest because they represented choice. My ability was becoming more precise. That should have excited me. Instead, it scared me. After restoring a signature from Nadia Rahal, I heard him arguing with a woman. "You will call her Salima. She is not Salima. She will be what I say she is." The echo ended. I knew immediately what I had lost. My mother used to sing while kneading bread. I remembered that, but I could no longer remember the melody. I spent the evening sitting beside my father, listening to him complain about the price of glue while pretending I was not terrified. That was when I started writing my own memories down. Mother's hands smelled of flour and orange blossom water. Father snores after couscous. Leela once broke my front tooth with a wooden spoon when we were 9. That one was not her fault, although she had maintained this defense with suspicious enthusiasm for 22 years. I wrote everything. Then I hid the notebook. The next week, Djamila told us about the sisters. Amina had originally resented Yamina. She saw the substitutions as theft. Salima feared them for the opposite reason. Every time Yamina successfully pretended to be her, Salima wondered whether the household still needed the original. But over time, Amina's anger shifted. She realized Yamina had no choice. The two became allies. Amina started sneaking Yamina books, teaching her jokes, correcting Murad when he called Yamina by the wrong name in private. Salima became increasingly withdrawn. Not cruel, frightened. That mattered to me, because I had expected the obvious story. Jealous sister, hidden child, violent rivalry. But Djamila kept resisting easy villains. Even Murad, she insisted, loved his daughters. Poorly, possessively, cowardly, but genuinely. He thought reputation protected us, she said. It protected him. Yes. Did he understand the difference? No. Then she told me Leela Cherif had discovered Yamina's identity and started collecting proof. Handwriting samples, measurements, photographs, school exercises. Anything that could establish that 3 separate girls lived in Dar El Ward. She wanted to expose Murad. No. Then why collect it? For Yamina. The answer hit harder than I expected. Djamila looked toward the dead rose garden. She said one day the girl might need evidence that she had existed. The tape recorder clicked. For once, I had remembered to turn it on. Djamila glanced at it. Your machine improves. I threatened it. Authority suits you. Then the reel stopped. The tape had tangled itself into a knot shaped, almost exactly like Algeria. I stared at it. Djamila laughed so hard she began coughing. That was when I remembered where I had heard her laugh before. The ink echo from the damaged ledger. The child giggling while Yamina practiced being Salima. Same rhythm. Same little breath at the end. I looked at Djamila. She saw my face. Her laughter stopped. And for the first time, I asked the correct question. Were you there? Djamila did not answer that day. She sent me home. This was particularly insulting because it was her house and therefore completely effective. For 3 days, she refused to see me. I spent those days being furious, which was more comfortable than admitting I was frightened by what I thought I knew. Leela was less impressed. You heard a child laugh in a magical memory and think it sounds like a 72-year-old woman. Yes, that is not evidence. It's evidence adjacent. That phrase means nothing. It means I'm probably right. It means you should sleep. I did not sleep. Instead, I examined photographs. Dar El Ward had dozens. Amina at 14. Salima at 12. Murad beside his olive presses. Family weddings. Relatives visiting. Always 2 daughters. Except one photograph bothered me. 3 girls stood near the fountain. At first, I assumed the third was a servant. Then I looked at the shadows. The photograph had been trimmed. Someone had cut away the third girl's face. But her hand remained. She wore a ring. A cheap brass ring shaped like 3 roses. I had seen that ring before. Djamila wore it on a chain around her neck. When she finally allowed me back, I placed the photograph beside her tea. She sighed. I had hoped you would take longer. You were Yamina. Silence. Djamila. My name was Yamina. No thunder. No ghost. No dramatic collapse. Just an old woman admitting a name. And somehow that felt larger than anything supernatural I had experienced. She told us the rest. After Leela Cherif began gathering evidence, Murad discovered what she was doing. He accused her of trying to disgrace the family. Cherif refused to surrender the documents. There was an argument. Within days, she left Ain Rahal. Did he threaten her? Yes. Did he hurt her? No. Did she take the evidence? Djamila looked at me. I believed she did. Believed. Not knew. That difference mattered. Then came the fire. 18 years earlier, in 1950. By then the girls were young women. Amina had become increasingly confrontational with Murad. Salima's health had improved, but the emotional damage had not. Yamina still moved between identities, depending on who was present. Cherif had been gone for years. The family remained trapped inside the lie. On the night of the fire, Djamila said, an argument broke out in the records room. She refused to describe it fully. A lamp overturned. Old paper burned quickly. One corridor filled with smoke. Djamila remembered being dragged toward the servants' passage. She remembered someone shouting. Then heat. Then waking outside. Amina was dead. Salima was dead. Yamina survived. Murad faced an impossible public situation. 2 legitimate daughters were known. One was dead. One was missing in the fire. The surviving daughter officially did not exist. So he declared that Salima Rahal had survived. Yamina became Salima permanently. No more substitutions, Djamila said quietly. No more changing dresses after guests left. No more hiding upstairs. I became the girl whose papers existed. What happened to Murad? He died 6 years later. And you kept the name. Yes. You could have changed it. Yes. You could have told people. Yes. Why didn't you? She looked directly at me. Because survival is habit forming. I wanted to judge her. That is easy from a chair. A false identity gave her access to money, education, travel, and legal ownership. Revealing herself could have stripped away everything. She eventually left Ain Rahal. She chose the name Djamila professionally. But legally, for years, she remained Salima Rahal. The literary world knew Djamila. The law knew Salima. Yamina existed nowhere. It explained her obsession with fabricated biographies. If journalists insisted on a past, she gave them 12. Every invented childhood protected the real one. Why tell me now? She looked tired. Because I am dying. That doesn't answer why me. No. I waited. She smiled faintly. Later. I hated her again. For approximately 12 minutes. Then I asked about my mother. Djamila's expression changed. She admitted they had met. My mother, Samira, had repaired documents for several local families. She had known something about ink echoes. Perhaps even experienced them herself. Djamila had once brought her a letter. My mother refused to restore it. Why? She said some memories were not ours to enter merely because we had the ability. That sounded exactly like my mother. It also sounded irritatingly like wisdom. What happened to the letter? I still have it. She did not show me. Of course. That evening, while leaving Dar El Ward, I met Nadia Rahal properly for the first time. He was Djamila's nephew through a collateral branch of the family. 43. Immaculate suit. Careful voice. The kind of man who looked as if dust had been instructed not to land on him. He knew what Djamila had confessed. That surprised me. She told you. Years ago. You knew Yamina existed. Yes. And you never corrected the records. His jaw tightened. Correct which records? The woman has used 3 names across 4 decades. The original one. And then what? He was not shouting. That made the conversation more difficult. Do you imagine truth arrives alone, Nadia? It brings property claims, inheritance disputes, accusations against dead people, questions about every contract signed under Salima's name. Families who had nothing to do with Murad's decisions could lose homes. He was right about one thing. Truth had consequences beyond satisfaction. Then he said, Djamila has spent 50 years turning people into stories. You think you are investigating her. He looked toward the house. She is writing you. I laughed at first. Later alone, I stopped. The problem with becoming suspicious of a storyteller is that every kindness begins looking like foreshadowing. Djamila asked whether I had eaten. Manipulation. She lent me an umbrella. Clearly symbolic. She told me the eastern staircase was unsafe. Obviously hiding something. Leela became so tired of my theories that she threatened to write them all on the blackboard at school and let 12-year-olds grade them. Meanwhile, Ratched began limiting our access. Not dramatically. That would have been easier. He changed locks because the house was unsafe. He moved boxes because rats had damaged the archive. He requested that municipal clerks stop releasing family records because ownership questions were pending. Everything had a reasonable explanation. Everything also made our work harder. Then a box disappeared. It contained Leela Cherif's correspondence. Djamila accused Ratched. Ratched denied it. I believed Djamila. That should have warned me. Instead, it made me reckless. My ink echoes were improving. I discovered that if I restored several connected words rather than a single name, the echo sometimes widened. I could hear background sounds, sense emotional direction, occasionally distinguish between what the writer saw and what they feared. But the cost increased. A 5-second echo might steal an hour of my memory. A 15-second echo could take something older. After restoring one of Murad's letters, I forgot my mother's voice. Not the idea of it. The sound. Gone. I went home and opened my hidden notebook. Mother spoke softly when angry. Mother laughed loudly. Mother pronounced the word tomato strangely because grandmother did. Facts. Accurate facts. They were not a voice. I cried for the first time in years. Then I went back the next morning. That is the part I am least proud of. Not that I used the ability. That I knew exactly what it was costing and continued. I had become convinced that finishing the mystery would justify whatever I lost getting there. I started restoring damaged records without telling Leela. One echo showed Amina giving Yamina the brass rose ring. Another showed Salima watching them from a doorway. The emotion in the memory was not hatred. It was terror. Salima whispered, "You like her better." Amina answered, "That is what this is. You protect her, because father won't. And me." The echo ended. That changed how I understood Salima. She had not simply feared replacement. She had watched Amina's loyalty move toward the hidden sister. Yamina gained the first person who openly defended her. Salima felt herself losing the same person. Then I found an exercise book containing 3 rose symbols. Amina drew them beside certain entries. Always 3. Never 2. I thought it was sentimental. Leela thought it was a code. She was right. The 3 roses marked documents Cherif had copied. Proof. We began searching for repeated symbols. Behind a photograph. Inside the cover of a school book. Beneath a drawer. They formed a trail. Not toward the eastern wing, as I expected. Toward the courtyard. Before we could follow it, Djamila collapsed. Not dramatically. She simply stopped mid-sentence while telling me about a market day and let her teacup slip. The doctor came. She had been ill for months. She had hidden how badly. Ratched blamed me. Not entirely unfairly. "You are exhausting her." She asked me to continue. She asks many things. So do dying people lose the right to decide what matters? No, but living people still have the right to tell them they're being foolish. That was his best quality. He loved her. Whatever else he wanted, he genuinely loved her. For 2 days I stayed away. On the 3rd, Djamila sent her driver with a note. "The tape machine misses you." I returned. She was in bed. Paler. Smaller somehow. Beside her lay an envelope addressed to me in my mother's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. My hands went cold. "You had this?" "Yes." "How long?" 21 years. "Why?" "Your mother gave it to me." "For what?" "To give you if you became like her." I stared at the envelope. My name had been written when I was 7. Nadia. My fingers tingled. The strongest echo I had ever felt waited inside those 5 letters. Djamila saw my expression. "Do not restore anything." "I haven't opened it." "You are already thinking about it." I was. Of course I was. She told me my mother had possessed the same ability. Samira learned, as I had, that stronger echoes cost stronger memories. Eventually, she stopped using it. "She chose you," Djamila said. "What does that mean?" She decided remembering her own daughter mattered more than hearing dead strangers. I hated the comparison. Because it was working. Then Leela arrived. She saw the notebook beside my tools. My notebook. The one containing descriptions of memories I was afraid to lose. I had forgotten to hide it. She opened to the first page. Then the second. Her face changed. "What is this?" I said nothing. "Nadia. I write things down." "Why?" Djamila closed her eyes. "Coward." Leela read a line. "Leela broke my tooth with a spoon when we were 9. Her hands started shaking. "You forgot that." "No." "Then why write it?" "In case." "In case of what?" I told her. "Not everything." "Enough." She stood. "You have been losing memories." "Yes." "And you kept going." "Yes." "Do you remember my mother's kitchen?" I tried. "Yellow curtains. Or green." I could not tell. Leela saw the answer. "You absolute idiot." I'm close. That is not a defense. One more document could explain the fire. And what will it take? I don't know. My face. No. You don't know. She left. I did not follow. That was the moment I should have chosen differently. Instead, I turned back toward the archive. For the next week, I worked alone. That sounds determined when written neatly. It felt miserable. Without Leela, I made mistakes. Not magical mistakes. Ordinary ones. I misstated a school record. Followed the wrong family branch. Spent 6 hours searching the Eastern Wing because I had convinced myself the sealed rooms held Sheriff's archive. They did not. They held burned furniture, collapsed plaster, and approximately 9 million spiders. One spider landed on my shoulder. My heroic investigation briefly became a sprint through 3 rooms while screaming. Djamila heard about it. For the rest of the week, she referred to the Eastern Wing as the battlefield. Even dying, she remained annoying. Ratched, meanwhile, discovered that I had entered the sealed wing. He confiscated my key. You are not authorized. Djamila authorized me. The ceiling nearly fell on you. Only part of it. That sentence is not reassuring. He had also arranged preliminary papers to sell part of the property after Djamila's death. The plan involved demolishing the damaged Eastern Wing and converting the rest. What about the archive? I asked. Preserved. By whom? A university collection in Algiers. That was reasonable. I disliked him more for being reasonable. Then he surprised me. He returned one of the boxes I thought he had removed. I didn't take Sheriff's correspondence. Then who did? Djamila. I stared at him. He looked tired. She has been moving pieces around since you arrived. Why? You still think this is an investigation. That sentence again. She knows what you will find before you find it. You think she is manipulating me. I think she hired you because there is something she wants discovered and something else she wants buried. That night, I confronted Djamila. She admitted moving the letters. Why? Because you were asking the wrong question. You don't get to decide that. It is my life. And my investigation. There. She smiled weakly. That is the problem. I almost shouted. Instead, I asked what she was afraid I would find. She turned toward the window. Proof that surviving can become an excuse. The answer made no sense until she told me the part of the story she had concealed. After Murad died, Yamina could have reclaimed her identity. There were still witnesses. Old servants. Neighbors. Records. She chose not to. Being Salima gave her inheritance rights. Money. Education. A house she eventually sold. The ability to travel. Later, when she became Djamila Rahal, she used wealth inherited through Salima's identity to finance the early years of her writing career. I told myself I had earned it, she said. Hadn't you? Some of it. She looked at me. That answer becomes dangerous when money is involved. There were relatives who might have inherited portions of the estate if the truth had been known. People excluded because legal Salima survived. Djamila had been both victim and beneficiary. Ratched knew. That was partly why he feared reopening the records. He was protecting himself. But also cousins, widows and grandchildren whose finances rested on decisions made before they were born. The story had stopped offering me clean sides. I hated that. Truth is much easier when it behaves. Then Djamila finally told me what happened the night of the fire. Or what she remembered. Murad found documents Amina had hidden. Proof of Yamina's identity. He demanded they be burned. Amina refused. Salima arrived. There was shouting. Yamina tried to take the documents. A lamp fell. Flames climbed the shelves. Smoke filled the records room. Amina dragged Yamina toward the servants' passage. Yamina remembered Salima shouting from behind them. Amina pushed Yamina through the narrow doorway. Then went back. Yamina never saw either sister alive again. That was Djamila's memory. But something troubled her. For years, she had remembered Amina shouting one sentence. Take her outside. Yet sometimes in dreams the words changed. Take it outside. A person. Or the documents. Memory had blurred. Use the echo, I said. Djamila stared at me. There is one remaining document. She opened a drawer. Inside lay a half-burned sheet. Murad's handwriting. Amina. Salima. Yamina. All four had signed it. I could feel the memory before touching it. It was enormous. What is it? A statement sheriff made us sign separately. Our names, our ages, who we were. Proof. Yes. Part of Yamina's signature had burned away. If I restored it, I might hear the night of the fire. Perhaps the truth. My hand moved toward my tools. Djamila covered them. No. You kept this 21 years. For your mother. What? She saw it once. My mother had refused to restore it. Djamila had asked her to. Samira said the echo was too strong. She told me some truths charge interest, Djamila whispered. I was angry with her. And now I finally understand. I looked at the missing strokes of Yamina's name. I wanted them more than I had wanted anything. That frightened me. So I took the document and went to find Leela. Leela made me wait on her doorstep for 11 minutes. I know because when you are ashamed, clocks become extremely informative. When she finally opened the door, she said, "If you've come to apologize, you may begin." I brought evidence. The door started closing. And an apology. It stopped. I apologized badly. Then again, better. I told her everything. About my mother. The letter. The burned statement. The strength of the echo. I could read it, I said. You mean destroy another memory? I might learn what happened. And if you forget your father. I looked down. Your mother. I already lost her voice. Leela's anger disappeared. That was worse. She sat beside me. For a while neither of us spoke. Then she asked, "Why do you think magic is the only way to know?" It was such an obvious question that I hated it. Because somewhere during the investigation, I had stopped being a restorer and started becoming an addict. Every uncertainty became another excuse to use the ability. Leela examined the burned document without touching the damaged signature. What did Sheriff do? Collected proof. Where? We don't know. What was her symbol? 3 roses. And what have we found them on? I listed the objects. School books. Photographs. A drawer. A ledger. Leela arranged copies across the table. Then she saw something I had missed. Each 3-rose mark had tiny differences. 1 rose open. 2 closed. Or 2 open. 1 closed. Positions changed. Not decorative. Directional. Sheriff had created a code. We spent the night reconstructing it. Open rose meant courtyard. Closed rose meant interior. Stem direction indicated left or right. Number of leaves indicated distance in architectural units used on the house plans. By dawn, the marks pointed beneath the courtyard fountain. The fountain that had cracked years ago. The fountain beside which 3 girls had once been photographed. We returned to Dar El Ward after sunrise. Ratched was already there. He saw our faces and knew immediately that we had something. No, we haven't asked anything. You have Nadia's window face. Leela looked at me. You do have one. Traitor. We showed him the pattern. He dismissed it initially. Then he examined the photograph. His expression changed. You knew. No. Djamila. He shook his head. For once, nobody knew. The fountain basin had been dry for decades. Beneath a layer of lime deposits, we found an iron maintenance cover. It was rusted shut. Ratched fetched tools. That mattered. He could have stopped us. Instead, curiosity defeated self-interest. Apparently, it was contagious. Beneath the cover, narrow steps descended into an old rain cistern. The air smelled of stone and dust. At the bottom stood 3 sealed metal trunks. Not treasure. Better. Documents. Leela Cherif had preserved everything. Student exercises. Measurements. Medical records. Notes identifying each girl separately. Photographs with dates. Letters Murad had written to Saida. A marriage certificate. And Yamina's birth record. No magical revelation could have been stronger than those ordinary papers. People imagine history is preserved by grand declarations. Mostly it survives because someone refuses to throw away boring documents. Cherif had done exactly what she promised. She made it impossible to prove that Yamina had never existed. There was also a letter explaining why she left Ain Rahal. Murad had threatened to destroy her professional reputation if she exposed him. She feared losing her livelihood. So she left. But before leaving, she hid copies of everything beneath the fountain. Then came the final surprise. Cherif had written that Amina knew where the archive was. That explained the 3 rows markings. Amina had been protecting the evidence after Cherif left. The documents Murad tried to burn on the night of the fire were not the only proof. They were copies. Amina knew the real archive would survive. That changed Djamila's memory. Amina had not returned into the burning room merely to save papers. She had gone back for Salima. Ratched sat on the cistern, steps reading quietly. He looked older than he had upstairs. This will affect the estate. Yes. My cousins. Yes. People who did nothing. Yes. I expected him to argue. Instead he said, and if I destroy it. Leela stiffened. He was not threatening us. He was asking himself. For one horrible second, I understood him. One box of papers could disturb dozens of lives. Then I remembered Yamina repeating another girl's name until she could say it without hesitation. You would become Murad, I said. Ratched closed his eyes. That landed. When we brought the trunks upstairs, Djamila was waiting in the courtyard. She saw Yamina's birth certificate. Her entire body seemed to become still. I placed it in her hands. She read her own name. Once. Twice. Then she laughed. Not loudly. The child's laugh from the echo. I finally heard it without magic. Djamila died 9 days later. She made it extremely inconvenient for everyone by dying at dawn on a Tuesday, because the lawyer was in Algiers, Ratched's brother was abroad, and my tape recorder chose that morning to finally operate perfectly. Her last recorded words were not profound. I had asked whether she regretted hearing me. She said, constantly. Then, after a pause. But not enough. The consequences began with her will. Djamila had prepared for the possibility that Yamina's identity would be restored. She had also prepared for Ratched trying to suppress it. Dar El Ward had been placed into a conditional family trust. If historical records established that the legal identity of Salima Rahal had been wrongfully assigned, exclusive control of the property reverted to a broader set of family beneficiaries. Ratched's planned sale stopped immediately. He was furious. Not theatrical fury. The exhausted kind. Lawyers arrived. Relatives arrived. People who had ignored Djamila for 15 years suddenly developed strong feelings about history. One cousin insisted Yamina's documents were fraudulent. Another said she had always suspected something, which was impressive considering she had been born in 1957. A third wanted the house sold anyway. Arguments multiplied. Money does that. But Rachid did something I did not expect. He verified the documents. Properly. Municipal seals. Paper age. Handwriting. Witness statements. Everything. He could have delayed for years. Instead, after 3 weeks, he publicly acknowledged that Djamila Rahal had existed. I asked him why. He said, "Because you were right." Then immediately added, "Do not become unbearable about it." I respected that. He lost exclusive control of Dar El Ward. Some inheritance claims were renegotiated. A portion of Djamila's estate went to descendants of relatives who had been excluded under the old legal fiction. Another portion funded preservation of the house and archive. Rachid remained involved. He did not become poor. He did not flee town. He simply lost the ability to decide alone what happened to the family past. That seemed appropriate. His consequence was not destruction. It was shared authority. Djamila's was more complicated. I spent 4 months writing her biography. Every version felt wrong. Victim. Too simple. Fraud. Also too simple. Survivor. True but incomplete. Thief. Sometimes. Daughter. Definitely. Prisoner. Yes. Beneficiary. Yes. The difficulty was resisting the human desire to force one moral label onto an entire life. Djamila had been wronged horribly. She had also benefited from the wrong. She had lied because truth once threatened her survival. Later she kept lying because truth threatened her comfort. Both mattered. I wrote both. Rachid read the manuscript before publication. He hated portions of it. So did she, I said. She read it. The first half. And she called me ungrateful. That sounds like her. Leela read it next. She returned 27 pages covered in corrections. You enjoy this too much, I said. I'm a teacher. Cruelty with institutional legitimacy. Page 84. You used however 4 times. I considered ending our friendship again. Instead, we drank coffee. My father was the last person I told about the ink echoes. Not because I planned to. Because he found my memory notebook. He read 3 lines. Then sat down. You forgot your mother's voice. Yes. He looked at me for a long time. You should have told me. I know. He was quiet. Then he began telling me stories about her. Not important stories. The way she hated coriander stems. The time she accused a neighbor's goat of stealing laundry. The song she sang badly. He sang part of it. His voice was terrible. I cried anyway. That was when I understood what my mother had meant. Memory did not live in one place. Losing part of mine did not erase her while other people still carried pieces. But that did not mean I should keep sacrificing myself. I stopped using ink echoes casually. Not completely. There were times restoration required it. Times a family desperately needed to identify a signature. Times a damaged record mattered. But I stopped treating every mystery like an emergency. Some uncertainty could remain. That was harder than magic. Months later, while preparing the final archive of Dar El Ward, I found my mother's unopened letter. The one Djamila had kept. My name was damaged along one edge. Just enough that restoring it would trigger the echo. I sat with it for a long time. My tools were beside me. The room was empty. Nobody would know. I could hear my mother again. Perhaps. 5 seconds. 10. Maybe more. And I would lose something else. I thought about it until sunset. Then I placed the letter inside a new protective sleeve. Unrestored. I read the parts that remained. Samira had written that if I ever discovered the ability, I would probably misuse it because curiosity had already infected the child beyond medical hope. That sounded like her. She wrote that memories were not proof of ownership. Hearing someone's pain did not automatically give me the right to enter it. The last paragraph was simple. A gift is something you can choose not to use. Otherwise, it is only another kind of master. I carried that sentence with me. The biography was published the following spring. I refused the publisher's first 3 suggested titles. One sounded romantic. One sounded tragic. One sounded as if Djamila had spent her life wandering through fog wearing black lace. Finally, I chose something simple. 3 names appeared on the first page. Amina Rahal. Salima Rahal. Yamina Rahal. No explanation. Just the names. All 3 together. The response was louder than I expected. Some readers accused me of attacking Djamila after her death. Others accused me of protecting her. Several critics seemed personally offended that a complicated woman had remained complicated. One newspaper called the biography a disturbing examination of identity, inheritance, and historical silence. My father bought 6 copies and complained that the photograph of me on the back made me look tired. I was tired. They could have improved you. Thank you. You know what I mean. Leela used excerpts in her history classes, mostly to teach students that official records are made by people, and people have motives. Ratched hated that. Then he visited one lesson. Afterward, he funded preservation cabinets for the school archive. He told me not to interpret this as character development. Dar El Ward changed slowly. The eastern wing was stabilized rather than demolished. The courtyard fountain was repaired. The cistern became part of a small archive accessible to researchers. Ratched insisted the house was not becoming a museum. It became something suspiciously similar to a museum. He continued denying this for years. The rose garden returned too. Not perfectly. Some bushes died. Others grew crooked. One enormous rose plant climbed a wall nobody intended it to climb. My father said this proved gardening lacked discipline. I said it reminded me of Djamila. He said that was exactly what he meant. The strangest change happened to me. People began bringing documents to the shop because of the book. Not famous documents. Ordinary ones. A widow brought letters from her husband. A man brought his grandfather's apprenticeship certificate. A family brought a water-damaged notebook containing recipes. For years, I had believed important history belonged to archives. After Dar El Ward, I understood that archives simply collected ordinary lives before everyone forgot they were ordinary. One afternoon, almost a year after Djamila's death, I was restoring Yamina Rahal's original birth record. The paper had been cleaned and flattened. The ink stabilized. One corner still needed repair. Her name was intact. Yamina Rahal. I traced the letters with my eyes. For months, I had expected something. An echo. A whisper. A child practicing another girl's name. Amina laughing. Salima crying. Djamila correcting me. Nothing came. For the first time, the silence did not feel like absence. It felt finished. Leela entered carrying coffee and found me staring. You're doing it again. What? Thinking so intensely that normal people become uncomfortable. I'm sitting alone. I became uncomfortable from the doorway. She placed the cup beside me. Anything. I shook my head. No echo. Disappointed. I considered it. then smiled. No. Outside, children were running past the shop toward the market. My father was arguing with a supplier over paper prices. Someone nearby had turned a radio too loudly. Ordinary life. Messy. Present. Alive. I closed the archive folder carefully. For most of that year, I had believed my gift existed, so the dead could force their truth into the present. I had been wrong. The dead had never asked me to remember everything. They had only needed the living to stop erasing them.